it's you. This is my first time at the Grand Canyon. I popped my Granyan cherry. But today, guess what? We are going to be talking about how you guys out there sent in your stories on your first times and when you got your cherries popped. We have a special guest today, and the stories are gruesome. The stories are hilarious. You will not want to miss this. Welcome to the Life in Red podcast. This is a way of life that emphasizes positive sexuality, self-love, and confidence. On this journey, red is now your new color. Be courageous. Be passionate. Be sexy. And never stop living your best red life. So now I have one question for you. Are you ready to live your life in red? To join us on this journey, like and subscribe below. Welcome to the Life in Red podcast. I know you guys have to be so excited because it is time to pop that cherry. It's a Pop That Cherry episode, guys. And today we're joined with Dr. Susan Milstein. You can call her Dr. Sue. Better yet, ask Dr. Sue when you get on her website, and I'll post that below. But let me introduce Dr. Sue. Thank you, first of all, for being on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. And I'm going to now just rain the details about who you are so these people can know. You need to know who Dr. Sue is. So at the very least, there's so many things that you've done. You've been featured on. You're an author. You're a doctorate in human sexuality and an educator in that. You've had multiple publications for Men's Health and all the way to Huffington Post, to Insider.com. You do Ask Dr. Sue, which I thought was super cool because you let people come with their problems and with their issues instead of you going to them finding their issues. And you're really a lover of people. You are out there. You're an advocate for sexuality, for people, against shame and all these things. Thank you so much again for being on.
Thank you. I'm excited about doing this episode. I'm excited to be on the podcast.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I've been like, this is what I've been looking forward to. I'm like, oh, let's do this. Okay. So let me ask you really quick before we get into this, Dr. Sue. I ask everybody, and I just think it's interesting, what got you into this line of work, helping people with sexuality?
So I actually wanted to be a health teacher. I wanted to be a high school health teacher. And I was actually certified K through 12 New York State. That was going to be my thing. And the more I was doing the work, the more I realized that sex was the thing that everyone really wanted to talk about, but no one was willing to give it the right time and space. And so I decided maybe that was supposed to be my thing. So I turned around and I got a PhD in human sexuality education. And I've been working with people across the lifespan, trying to give them information, kill those taboos, and just help people have happier, healthier sex lives.
That's so cool. Like you're just like, these kids are going to just keep asking me about sex. So let's dive into it.
Yeah.
Well, good for you. That's amazing. All right. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
To get started. So this is how it works, everybody. We've had viewers write in, and for this episode, we're going to deal with the first time experience, to be true to Pop My Cherry. We're going to talk about people's losing their virginity. I know we're gonna hit that, but There's all these terms of the first time. We could go ahead and weigh in on this if you like. It's the losing the virginity,
Mm,
giving yourself away. What do you think
It's
about this?
I hate that term, and my students always laugh because I always make that face when someone says losing their virginity. I'm not. It's not that we're necessarily losing something. I think we should be looking at it as like we're gaining an experience. We're having this moment with this other person. And then we never actually define what virginity is. Like, is virginity the first time you have penile vaginal intercourse? Because some people will never do that. Is it the first time you have oral sex? The first time you have anal? Like, we never define this word, but then we say we lose this word. And then the whole idea is that it's supposed to be shameful in some way because we're losing it. Like, whoops, we made a mistake and we lost it. So even just that term, it's vague, and it's already starting us off with thinking like this is something that we're letting go of instead of something that we're gaining something from.
Exactly. It's like I grew up saying that. Like, oh,
Mhm,
guess what, girls? I lost my virginity. I gave a part of myself away that I will never
mhm.
get back ever again. Uh, but it was amazing. And I'd do it again.
Yeah, but it also gives a lot of power to that other person instead of it being like the shared experience where we're both doing something together. It's I'm giving away something to someone else, and
Right.
some people might enjoy that idea of I'm giving you something. I would almost prefer the term be giving rather than losing, though. But
I'm
that's
giving, yeah, I think like if you get into the spirituality, the woo circles and all that, they would say there's an energetic exchange with
Mhm.
every experience, whether you believe that or not. So that would fit that realm of giving and receiving and all those things. But it's like unless someone takes it by physically
Yeah.
forcing themselves on you, you may have lost a part of yourself because of trauma, but it's something that is not lost forever. You can always get back
Mhm.
that part of yourself. But anyway, it's time to get into the stories, and we're going
Yeah.
to then discuss them. This is going to be fun. I'm going to get into the first story, and these are anonymous. We are not going to say those names. Um, but I'm going to first read this one. So this one's quite interesting. All right. Dear Life in Red. I was 16 years old and came from a very religious Christian family. I had a boyfriend who was Muslim, and I was in love. So we both decided it was worth the risk to risk fire and brimstone as our ending experience and have a magical moment for our first time. It was so planned out. I went to Fredericks in New York, got sexy lingerie, then made a musical playlist to top it off, including Bon Jovi, Bed of Roses for the climax. My dad was going out of town. I was 16, and I knew it was the perfect time to sneak the boyfriend over and have our beautiful first time lovemaking fest. Being a hopeless romantic, even if it wasn't that great in hindsight for me, it felt magical. I never had an orgasm, but seeing him have an orgasm was everything. I remember afterwards I was very sore, and it was hard to have sex again afterwards because of that. Maybe my cherry hadn't fully popped. This romantic forgive me. So, this romantic decided to write her boyfriend a love letter describing how beautiful the sexual experience was, and it blew my mind. I didn't skip a detail. Unfortunately, though, I made a copy of this letter and decided to rewrite it so I had better handwriting, and I left it on my desk. My dad returned home. He found the letter, and to say the least, it was not a pretty sit down. But hey, it was worth it. And by the way, guys, this is my first time experience. I'm exposing. It was supposed to be anonymous. This was me. That was so bad. So we get into it. Dealing with, in the story, dealing with afterwards the first time, the cherry itself, the soreness,
Mhm.
and not knowing, because there's so much shame. We don't, a lot of times we can't talk to our moms. We are afraid to ask questions to educators about the first time experience. And we could use the clinical term, which I have no clue what it is, for the cherry. I'm sure you do.
It's the hymen.
The hymen. Thank
Yeah.
you. So why would it be sore afterwards? Is there something people could do?
I mean, it's one of those things that a lot of times there's not a ton of penetration happening beforehand, and so
Mm.
the vagina can be really tight. And if they're not lubricated enough, it's going to be sore, because it's going to be a little bit raw. And so my thing is, and I don't care how many times you've engaged in this, unless it's your thing to be a little raw, like lube is everybody's friend. I don't care if it's your first
Mm.
time, your 100th time, like whatever. Lube is great for everyone and can stop with some of the rawness and the tenderness. But a lot of times, if you can kind of prep your partner for, if someone can prep their partner by maybe putting 2 or 3 fingers in just to stretch out the vagina so it doesn't feel as tight. There's sometimes going to be soreness no matter what, but sometimes we can do a little bit more just with prep, especially lube, that will help with that soreness. But it's also part of the legacy of kind of how we talk about it. We
Yeah.
always talk about how the first time is supposed to hurt. And so people
Mm.
are almost looking for that to happen because it's
Mm.
supposed to be part of the experience.
It's as bad as giving something away. This is going to hurt. I'm
Yes.
giving a part of myself. I can't wait.
Mm-hmm. This is going to be fantastic for one of us, but the other person's probably going to be sore. I mean, I don't know if we want to work in pop culture, but if you watch season 3 of Bridgerton, right before they have sex, he warns her, this is going to hurt. Like it's just part of the narrative that we use now. And I think it's important to discuss that it might, but maybe think about, well, what can we do to kind of ease you into this? Can we do a little stretching with fingers, maybe a sex toy if that's comfortable? But also, are we using enough lube? There's never a discussion of lube in pop culture. So
No, and I think there's a pride thing for me. I'll call myself out. It's like certain times I don't need it. Like, and I put all this pressure on my partner to get me stimulated.
mhm.
And because if you're not, I must not be that into you. But
Okay.
it's like I'm just calling myself out, the pride element.
Yep. And that's one of the things we see, and especially for women who it is their first time, they may be nervous and not able to really relax into the experience. So it's not that their partner's doing anything wrong or not
Mm.
stimulating them. Their body's just kind of in this like, oh, what's happening kind of mode. Some people just don't lubricate because they just don't. And I also work a lot with older women, and as you go through menopause, like there's going to be a natural decline. So I think that's part of the issue is thinking that we're not stimulated enough if we're not wet enough. And the two often have nothing to do with each other. I mean, sometimes
Mm.
there's a link, but sometimes there's not.
Right. And I think that's such a golden nugget there to not be so, stop being putting so much pressure on my partners.
Yeah, that's a lot. And if it's your partner's first time, they may have no clue what to do. And
Yeah.
if if they were learning about sex, because we don't ever teach people like this is how you do the act, if they're learning about it by watching porn, there's very
Right.
little discussion of like how do you prep someone for the first time, how do you know what you're doing, and so they could also be fumbling around, and that's a lot of pressure to put on them. So it can
Wouldn't
be
it
awkward
be,
for everybody.
yeah, yeah, sorry to interrupt you. Wouldn't it be cool, like, if they had adult entertainment that was like, has someone like you intermediately, like, okay, we're going to do sex ed today. And it's like an adult entertainment video live. People really are going. But it's like you're educating. If
Yeah.
this is your first time experience, so they're like getting off while they're watching it, but it's educational.
Yeah, I mean that would be an interesting. Sorry, let me kill that sound. That would be an interesting experience. It could be a buzzkill for some folks, but I
Yeah.
think we don't do enough prep because where are they going to get that information?
Yeah.
And we don't kind of explain these things, so people are figuring it out on their own, and that's
Hmm.
yeah, they don't have that direction. That would be an interesting concept.
I know.
Having
I'm
someone
sorry.
narrate it live. So now what we see.
So
Um,
now, as you can, it's like National Geographic. As the lion is going, as the male mounts the female adult worker,
yeah,
notice how she applies the loop.
yeah,
No, I'm joking.
that would
Um,
be a little awkward, but
it would be funny.
it
I
would
would
be.
just be like, But yeah, it was interesting. After my experience, I was sore, and then I was extremely the Disney fantasy girl. I
Mhm.
still partially am. But I would say there was Bon Jovi playing. I want to lay you down. And I had them all layered. Like, okay, so I could have played it out in my mind. He's going to walk into the house. So we'll have Backstreet Boys, and then move on to this song. But yeah, my dad was in Mexico. And so when it was the first time I ever had alcohol too. So I remember I had just like a little bit of alcohol. I was trying to show off. And I was like, ugh. I had a worm in the tequila. I was just like, what's going on here? Bugs. And then so dad gets home, and I remember my dad has that Scottish temper.
Mhm.
So he's like, deep voice, scared the crap out of me. Brittany, come up here. And I'm like, what did I do? And then he's holding a letter with like marker colorings, and it says my boyfriend's name. And I'm like,
Mhm.
and then I'm thinking about all the details. You were so amazing. I love your big, and it was felt so, and da 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 da. And he was standing there, and he was just like almost ashamed to even get mad at me and talk about it.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I was grounded, but to say the least. Yeah. So we're going to go into our next story.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Oh, this is a guy. Nice. My girlfriend and I decided to go for it. It was our first time having sex, and to be honest, I was quite nervous.
Mhm.
I knew I could keep things nice and stiff for me, but would I embarrass myself and lose my erection for her? Her family had her on lockdown, so we planned a date where I'd pick her up for some good, clean fun at the bowling alley. We never made it inside because the car was our hiding place to make all of this plan happen. She had her pants off, and it was showtime. I thought I was inside her, but I was in between her and the car seat. She never said anything. She just sat there watching me close my eyes and proudly make love to my car. To say the least, I had my first time experience with sex and with my car. This is actually real. This is like a real deal first time experience, guys. Like, it's hilarious. I'm just like, oh man, I wonder what kind of car it was. Was it, I don't know what it identified as.
Mhm.
Like, so I don't
Well,
know what.
there's
Go
some
ahead.
really interesting things there because the fact that she didn't say anything, maybe that she was trying to protect his ego, but if she never had sex either, she may not have. I mean, she had to have known that he wasn't inside of her, but maybe she thought that was the first part, was like rubbing against her. Because I'm thinking that if his dick was between like her body and the car seat,
Yeah.
I'm trying to imagine how this was playing out, that she felt the rubbing. So maybe she thought that was like the first thing that was supposed to happen. But again, it's this whole like, if you don't know what it is, you can't say anything. And she probably didn't. If he looked like he was having a great time, she probably didn't want to be like, "Hey, time out, you're missing something."
I didn't even think
Uh,
of it like that. That makes sense. She could have
yeah,
thought, like, we talk about a dry,
yeah.
like, dry movements towards each other and this and that. And that could have been where she's just like, okay. Cause, typically from females during, the past few years are now opening up to adult entertainment for pleasure.
Hmm.
Whereas, back in my day, like that wasn't normal. It was more gentlemen would do this, or people identified as males. I don't know. But it's just like, so she may have not had the education to know.
Hmm.
And yeah, speaking up. Nobody
Yeah,
does it anyway. It's so
right.
sad.
But and then if there was rubbing happening, the rubbing could have felt good, especially if like her clit was being touched. Like she may have been like, "Oh,
Mm-hmm.
this I thought it was going to hurt, but it's not, but this feels good." And she may not have she may not have realized that wasn't part of the process.
Yeah, she's like, wow, I thought this was painful. Maybe I didn't give away a part of myself.
Yeah.
Nah,
Yeah.
joke's on you. The car got it. Now, I'm playing. All right, we're going to go into our last story. All right, this was pretty short. My first time was not so pretty. I never understood why people say they give away their virginity. I always felt I would share an experience and that I would choose to share my body. So, that being said, I waited till I was married to do this.
Wow. Okay.
And I'm guessing it could be for religious reasons. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
The wedding night approached, and I knew this was the moment I would share my body with the man of my dreams, my husband. 5 minutes later, after we finished, I realized this one-sided lover who rolled over and went to bed was just a fantasy. Now, I always test before I buy. I guess she's not married anymore. I'm sure there's...
That's my assumption too.
Yeah. Interesting.
And I think that's even worse sometimes. I mean, if you want to say, let me rephrase that, because I don't think waiting till marriage, if that's your thing and that's your belief and that's your value, good for you. But I think that if one of you or both of you is waiting until marriage and you're doing it on your wedding night, there's not a lot of time for conversation, because it's just like this expected thing is going to happen. Yeah. There's no like, hey, like, how do you want to do this? Or there's probably no conversation at all about it. And I think that's true for most people in most situations about sex. We find in this country that it's easier to have sex than it is to talk about it. And so she may have been going in with these grand expectations of what it was. And then he's done, he rolls over, and I'm pretty sure there was no conversation afterwards about whether or not she was happy with what happened. And that can be the problem, especially when you're waiting till marriage, because you build it up to be this huge thing. And then if there's no real bonding from it, it can be a real letdown.
It can be. So you have that expectation set in that fantasy realm of quite like my bed of roses fantasy. You have it set, but there's no communication. That's interesting. A good point you're bringing up, because just like we hear that relationships fail oftentimes because of communication. I would say it's quite similar, sexual relationships. If this person, I don't know the full story, but let's say there was communication and there was no shame around that, which, we talked like, hey, I'm a little bit nervous. We have some vulnerability. It's scary. I'm a little bit nervous, but I'm so excited to get to be with you. Can we talk about this? But I think we're afraid we'll kill the mood.
So, people are getting caught by their dad and banging cars accidentally. It's quite the episode. Stay tuned for part 2. It doesn't get any better.
Thanks for joining the Life in Red today, where we embrace passion, confidence, and positive sexuality. Keep painting your journey in bold red strokes. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us so that you never miss out on living your best red life. Ready for more? Stay passionate, stay red. See you next episode.